hour? Am I actually an influencer? I never thought so. Like, again, I don't mean to harp on this, but I'm not exactly a high-rated YouTuber. I mean, my movie reviews get next to nothing. And again, if you are one of the folks who watches me, thank you. I deeply and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. But I can't help but wonder, because as I was sitting watching this movie, a thought occurred. And I'd mentioned it several times on this channel, that I'm a great lover of murder mysteries. And like classic murder mysteries. And I often yearn for the days of yore when you had these, these film series like The Thin Man or Charlie Chan or the Maisie series. These fun, quirky murder mysteries. And I've remembered many times doing reviews here saying, oh, I love these, and I wish we were living in a time when we did more of them. And as I watched this, I suddenly realized we kind of are. I mean, we've had the Kenneth Branagh Poirot series, which are amazing, and I want more. We're getting a second Knives Out movie, which I said I wanted during the review of that. And now this film. And I loved this film, and I want more Stoppard and Stalker mysteries. I'm also a huge proponent of being thankful for what you have and not always demanding more and just going, thank God we got the one. But I'm just saying, if anyone's listening, if the people in Hollywood are some of the folks watching these and they're following my lead and going, hey, he's right, we need more of those, then folks, greenlight another one of these. Because this was phenomenal. This was so much bloody fun. And I admit right on the out that I am such an easy lay for a movie like this. A movie like this is like, it feels like it's tailor-made for me. Quirky murder mystery, Agatha Christie style, and deeply rooted in the in theatrical tradition, deeply rooted in one of the most famous theatrical murder mysteries of all time, The Mousetrap, which is a really fun show. I think a lot of people may look down their nose at it a bit, but I really enjoy it. I think it's a fun show. One of those shows I really want to direct one day. And all these things coming together with two great actors whose work I really love. It's like, it feels a little bit like they went down a checklist and said, what would Brandon like? And there's a few things they missed out. But you know what? I'm not going to quibble about that because the film was just so much damn fun. So, real quick, let's set the stage for you, if you'll allow me. So the film is about the murder of a film director played by Adrian Brody, who I'm glad he was the killer, or I'm not the killer, I'm glad he was the victim because I do not like Adrian Brody. But anyway, who is murdered in a West End theater, which is most famous for its long-running production of Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap. Film takes place in 1950, when The Mousetrap was somewhat new, and it's on the verge of being made into a movie, and the director is murdered. The potential film director is murdered during the celebration of the 100th performance, and everyone, of course, is a suspect. Bring into this our main detectives, Stoppard and Stalker, played by Sam Rockwell and Saoirse Ronan. I'm sorry, I mispronounced her lovely name. And Sam Rockwell plays your typical kind of world-weary, drunk, kind of going nowhere inspector. Saoirse Ronan is the eager, chipper young constable who just wants to solve the mystery and is a little too overzealous. And of course, they form a buddy cop team and go and try to solve the mystery. And bloody hell, man. Okay, so let's try to organize this. So first of all, the script is damn clever. Damn clever. If you're a fan of Agatha Christie mysteries, and I must admit, I've never actually read one of Agatha Christie's books, but I have seen many film variations on her different works. I've seen a lot of Poirot. I've seen a lot of Miss Marple. You know, I've seen Partners in Crime. I've read The Mousetrap many times. So if you are a fan of Agatha Christie, you're going to recognize so many little nods to her stories and her tropes and her characters, some of which they deliberately bring attention to and shine a light on. Others they kind of let pass. There was one line in this, which I think I was the only one in the theater who got, because I was the only one laughing, and I think some of the people were wondering why, where they are investigating the hotel where Adrian Brody was staying, and they're talking to the concierge, and Saoirse Ronan asks him, where in France are you from? And he says, I'm Belgian, which, again, is one of the famous kind of running jokes from the Poirot series, that they always say that he's French, but he tells them he's Belgian. So little things like that, and especially if you are familiar with the Mousetrap, so many of the twists and turns that the case takes mirror the ins and outs of the Mousetrap. Like, it's done by design. So clearly the people writing this movie had vast experience with the Mousetrap. I remember when the movie first started, and I saw that they were actually using the Mousetrap and using Sir Richard Attenborough as a character, because he starred in the Mousetrap. I was a little taken aback. I was like, why would you do this as opposed to creating a completely fictional play that the story can then revolve around? And as the story unfolded, I got my answers, because it relies very heavily on the imagery and tropes and story structure of the actual Mousetrap. I'd be very curious to know how. I'm going to recommend this film to everybody, especially my parents, who they are who I got my love of detective shows and whatnot from. So I'd be very interested if people who are not as familiar with the Mousetrap, how much they get out of it. It's one of those films where I wonder sometimes, is it a little too esoteric? I don't care, because I loved it, and I'm sure people who have been in the Mousetrap or have read it or have directed it, I'm sure they're going to get a lot out of it. So, but I'd be curious to know kind of what a novice to the story, or someone who doesn't know the story at all, will get out of it. But so that's one of the great things about a quirky murder mystery, is the twists and turns the story takes, and it does a great job. The casting is phenomenal, a great ensemble cast, headed up again by Sam Rockwell and Saoirse Ronan. Sam Rockwell's always good. I mean, I know that's a cliche, but it's very true. He's a chameleon. He kind of, you can tell certain aspects of a Sam Rockwell performance. The guy is very kind of fluid in his movements. Not so much like a slapstick, like say a Jim Carrey in his prime, but still he has a very ease of transition physically from one movement to the next, depending on if he's playing, someone like Justin Hammer, who's supposed to be kind of a snake and, a little slimy, or you play this guy who's drunk and therefore doesn't have a lot of coordination, and he makes it look all so effortless, which is beyond talent. Like, I can only imagine how much work he actually puts in to make something look so effortless. And of course, Saoirse Ronan is always just completely charming and a joy to watch. I I loved her very much in Brooklyn. I think Brooklyn is one of those great understated films. I should do a review of that sometime, even though I don't know if that really qualifies as a forgotten gem. But at any rate, she's just delightful in this role. What I also like about this is they give you enough of the characters' background information to make them relatable. And I'm talking mainly about our two detectives. To make them relatable and to understand kind of who they are. But that personal history, while it plays a part in the story, it doesn't overshadow the story. You know what I mean? I think a lot of modern detective shows and cop shows really focus on the drama of the person's personal life. And here it's not, well, here is the story of their personal life. And yes, it's going to play a part at a certain plot point, but it's not at the expense of the story, if that makes any sense. And I think they played very well off each other. I honestly think if there's a flaw in this movie, there are a couple of things I would have done different. If there's a flaw, it's that I don't feel they ever really got a chance to work well together. You know, I don't think their relationship going from a world-weary detective being forced with a chipper, you know, optimistic young partner, and then slowly growing to like her and forming a friendship and all that. I don't know if that was ever fully developed. It's weird that I think their best scenes were the scenes they didn't have with each other, which is a little unnerving. But I really believe that they do have a connection. That's why, again, being a greedy bastard here, I would very much like to see another one of these, another Stopper and Stalker mystery, just so that the characters can have a little bit more time to interact with each other and actually form that friendship and form that bond. I think that would be that'd be something that'd be fun to watch. I think another thing I liked about this film was, again, it's quirky. It's very quirky. It really walks the line between a serious murder mystery and almost it teeters on the brink of a slapstick comedy. Doesn't quite go over the edge too much, but there is some tonal shifts in here. But the world that they set up, and they do a fantastic job in terms of the direction and the writing and the acting of setting up the world, that you can have these extreme tonal shifts and not have it feel out of place. Everything feels like it belongs in the same world. There is also just a very, very stylized look in this film. It is a grand film. And even though it is a smaller budget movie comparatively to some other things that are out and coming out, there is a grandness to the set design, the cinematography. Everything is meant to be a very big and very theatrical world. I mean, looking at the West End Theater where this takes place and just being so jealous of going, oh my God, I want to direct there. I want to have access to all that. How big the set is that they're working on, which is funny. And again, this is kind of going into the cinematography. But the set itself, when you really look at it, is not that big. The Mousetrap is a one-room murder mystery. But the way it's photographed and the way they move the camera around makes it look really big and theatrical. It's the only word I can really use to describe it. And then when they go into the exterior shots, especially there towards the climax, there's some beautiful mood and atmospheric shots of snowfall, and kind of one of those great... the way I associated it is those movies that come out around Christmas that are really trying to sell you on the Christmassy of it and have the beautiful snowfall at night shots. That's what this... It felt like something out of Edward Scissorhands or something like that. But yeah, it's a gorgeous looking movie. Like I say, the cinematography and everything is just spectacular. If I had, which I do, I guess, it's not if I had, but there are some things I didn't think worked. I think while I really enjoyed the cinematography, the scope of it, and virtually all of the directing, I do feel at certain points it's over-directed. And there are certain things that I know the director had a reason. It's not that hard to figure out what was going on, but he would sometimes revert to this split screen thing. What I mean by that is that, for instance, in scenes where Adrian Brody is having a conversation with one of the suspects of who murdered him, instead of doing a wide shot and having both and just seeing both people's reaction, they do a close-up shot of both of them and then put it side by side. And this just got very irritating, and it felt very intrusive to the story, which may have been part of the purpose of it. They make a lot of reference to kind of the difference between a murder mystery on stage and the murder mystery in a movie, and how a movie has to have all of these things to keep the audience excited. You know, there's a murder in the first 10 minutes. You know, they don't waste a lot of time setting everything up, and they do all these conceits that kind of pull the audience out. So I have a feeling it was planned that way. And there are some points where it does pay off. Or at least, if not pay off, I think it works better. For instance, later in the film, when naturally a second victim is murdered, they do the split screen with the performance of the Mousetrap that's going on at the same time, and showing how the fake murder and the real murder are mirroring each other. So instead of just cutting back and forth between the two, they simply show both at the same time. In that respect, I think it worked. But I don't know. And I remember I had the same comment about Kenneth Branagh's Murder on the Orient Express, that at certain points it felt over-directed. And I think when you're making a very stylized picture, you're making something with a very specific look to it. Hang on, I'm going to just adjust that so it doesn't flip over on me. When you're making something with a very stylized look to it and a very specific visual language, you run the risk of overstepping your bounds just slightly and going a bit too much. And it's always a very, very fine line. And your mileage may vary. Some people it might not bother. Other people, like me, it might bother a lot. But for me, I thought that was not the best. I don't know. All in all, the movie was good. There is something about the climax that didn't quite work for me, and I don't know what it is. Again, the drawback of doing one of these reviews directly after you've seen it and not really giving it a chance to marinate, is that sometimes you get those little niggles in there. You're like, I'm not sure what's going on here, why it didn't work, and even not knowing if not working is the right phrase. There's just something about it that felt a little out of step, and I don't know what that is. So I'm sorry to kind of leave you hanging, but I feel it recovered. I feel it. When it was over, I was still very happy with the whole production, and just like I say, I came out just completely overjoyed. I had a ball, and I want more. I'm greedy. I'm gonna be a greedy fucker. I want more. So there you have it. I can't really think of what else to say. I don't want to get into spoilers. I'm not going to tell you who done it, just out of respect. And it's not like the whodunit really plays into any major differences in the story, you know. So it's not like a spoiler that you have to talk about in order to talk about themes and all that with the script. But I think it's a very clever whodunit. I think it was a lot of fun, and I fully fully enjoyed it. Sorry, I got distracted by something going on the side of the road I won't get into. But anyway, so let's wrap this up. I feel like I've gone on long enough. So final grade for See How They Run. Oh, this is an A. This is an A. There's something keeping me from giving it an A+. Maybe after I've thought about it for a little bit, that grade might bump up or it might fall down a little bit. But I had so much fun. I admit I am the easiest lay in the world for a movie like this. So I urge everybody, if you are a murder mystery fan, if you're an Agatha Christie fan, if you're a theater person, go watch this movie because it deserves it. And it deserves a bigger audience. I was like one of 4 people in there. And I was really upset about that because I think this is a movie that deserves an audience. So please, go and enjoy and have a good time. I sure did, and I think you will too. All right, so there you have it. That is my review for See How They Run. So thank you all for joining me. Thanks for coming along. And as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.